I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This has been a truly surreal 2 weeks for me, starting with being on the David Letterman show, which is something I never thought I'd get to do. And then, thank you. He's with me. And doing well on the show too was great. And then, you know, the book came out, and then everything started happening on the Today Show yesterday, which again I never thought I'd get to do. So it's been amazing, and the response just by everybody being here has been amazing. I can't thank you enough. I'll start out a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about why I came to write the book. I'm going to read a passage or two from the book, very short. I'm not going to bore you. And then we're going to do a little question and answer, and then we'll line up and I'll sign everybody's book. Thank you. Hello. Hey now. So the way this whole thing came about was I was pitching a book around about a year ago. You know my love of music, and I think I'm Mr. Casey Kasem. So I was pitching a book around called Bababoey's Book of Rock and Roll Lists, Arguments, Essays, etc. And I was, you know, getting some response to it, but I called my buddy who's a book agent, and I said to him, you know, what do you think of this? You think anybody be interested in it? And he said, well, I think you get some interest in it, but I think that, you know, people are looking for a different book. And I'd made it really clear for a long time that I wasn't going to do a behind-the-scenes book, a tell-all book. You know, you guys know Howard wouldn't be down with that, and I don't think I would ever hire somebody who would write a book like that. So he said to me, well, what's your story? And I said, well, I don't have a story. But when he said, what's your story, I knew exactly what he meant, because I got a story. It's in the book. But he said, what's your story? And I said, I don't have a story. And he goes, everybody's got a story. So I called him back the next morning, and I said, okay, you want to hear my story? Here's my story. And I told it to him, and he goes, that's the book. I said, yeah, but there's a problem with that. I don't know that I'm ready to tell the story or if I'm comfortable telling the story, because it involves a lot of members of my family and a lot of, you know, memories that aren't so great. So I took time, and I really wasn't sure, and I went home and I talked to my wife about it, and she was very much like, well, it is your story, you know, there's stuff in there about your mom and your brother, but it is your story. So I started to think about it, but it was probably like 3 weeks before Christmas vacation, so I sort of went from, I'm definitely not doing this, to I don't know, to let me think about it, to my wife was sort of down with it, and then I called my brother, which was a big deal because, you know, I wanted to see what he thought, and he said he was down with it, and then inevitably I had to go to my mom. And I told my mom, you know, the whole thing, and it was actually, in a lot of ways, it was sort of a poignant moment with my mom, because we never really discussed, you know, all the craziness I went through growing up. And at one point she said to me, you know, was I a bad mother? And I said, no, Mom, I love you. And, you know, if you were an alcoholic or you were a pill taker or something like that, I would say you were selfish, but you can't help the way you were. And it was a really amazing moment for me and my mom, because if I didn't write this book, we may have never had that discussion. So it was really good. And so that's how I came to write the book. That's how I ended up here. I love you. I love you. Nice hat. All right, I'm gonna read a couple of passages out of the book. I'm gonna put my glasses on because I'm getting old, and I started reading. I can't see anything. So, as you've heard me talking about for a while, I've been saying that I come from a chaotic background, and so my mom was, you know, my mom suffered from depression. She'd been institutionalized a couple of times. The part that I'm going to read about now is actually my mother acting a little crazy, and I don't think it was her mental illness. This was just her being a fiercely protective Italian mom who sometimes didn't know how to act. My mom's issues stemmed as much from her temper as they did from her mental instability. There was a line she crossed where one gave way to the other, like she couldn't find an off switch. One day we went to the A&S department store in Hempstead to buy me new school clothes. My mom tried to pay with a credit card, and that was in my father's name, but the sales lady wouldn't accept it. Naturally, my mom flew into a rage. She started throwing my clothes, which were sitting in a pile on the counter, at the lady. Those were followed by the black Chuck Taylor high tops I had picked out. One of the Chucks hit the sales lady in the head while she was on the phone with security. That's when we sprinted out of the store to avoid getting arrested. The temper problems meant that even when my mom was in the right, she could occasionally wind up in the wrong. In our part of town, she had a lot of friends, but she also had a lot of people she perceived to be enemies. That's how it was with her. Everything was black and white. You were her friend or you were her enemy. Our next door neighbors happened to be enemies. The houses on my street were practically on top of one another, separated by just a thin driveway. The older son next door was just a grade ahead of me. For some reason, he had it in for me. He constantly beat the crap out of me. It became a regular topic of conversation in my house. What are we going to do about Gary getting beaten up? I was in the 3rd grade. Finally, one warm spring afternoon, my mom decided she was going to go next door and have a chat with the guy's mom. It was just like out of the Brady Bunch, where Peter was getting picked on, and Mike and Carol went over to the bully's house, expecting everyone to be reasonable. Except in this case, they weren't. With me on her heels, my mom walked over and knocked on our neighbor's door. I noticed a lot of kids playing ball in the street. I stopped by myself at the very edge of our property line on the driveway, which meant I was still plenty close to listen to the conversation. I had never been in their house and was real anxious about being as close as I was. Our neighbor opened her screen door, but instead of inviting my mom in, she stepped out onto the top step of the three-step stoop. My mom said, "I want your son to leave my son alone." So far, so good. A perfectly reasonable request. Carol Brady would have been proud. Then our neighbor answered in a flippant, casual tone, "Maybe your son could defend himself." Uh-oh. I can't remember who dropped the first F-bomb, but in a matter of seconds, they were flying. The neighbor was yelling, "Fuck you." My mom yelled it back, and then my mom pushed her. My first thought was, let's get out of here now, Mom. This isn't working. We should walk away right now. I knew that my mom would get herself worked up, and it would be impossible to stop this thing from escalating. There would be no turning back. Our neighbor couldn't believe she'd been pushed. She stood there, her mouth open, like she was watching a scary movie, only she was in it. Now people were starting to gather around. The kids who'd been playing ball in the street dropped their bats and stared. Then my mom took it to another level. There were shrubs and a flower bed just to the side of our neighbor's stoop, underneath the big bay window. As the woman stood there, my mom reached down and pulled up some of the shrubs. She must have caught a glimpse of the roots because she decided that they might make good weapons. Dirt was flying everywhere. By now the neighborhood parents were in the street watching too. They were fascinated, amazed, horrified, and stunned. I was petrified and embarrassed. This is not what we came here to do, I thought. My mom had started out on the right, and now she was beating our neighbor with her shrubbery.